step right up and get your tickets for another moment in gaming history. Hey guys, welcome back, or if you're new here, welcome to the channel. This is your next, or in some cases, first moment in gaming history, and this is a series where I go into the various different moments or changes in gaming that were critical or fascinating to its development. Today, I'd like to dip back into the world of handheld gaming, which has gained increased popularity recently with the release of the Switch and the Steam Deck, prompting many who left it behind to dive back in again. Now, this isn't the first time we've covered handhelds. We covered the very first handheld game in Auto Race some time back, but today, I want to take a look at the first handheld console that allowed you to swap carts rather than having a single game loaded on it. So, let's get started. When you think of handheld gaming, what's the first thing that comes to mind? It's likely the Game Boy, or for those of you that are old enough, perhaps something like the old Game & Watch systems or even Tiger Electronics products. Most of us would probably presume the former, since it was the first interchangeable cart system for games that replaced the smaller, more inexpensive products like the Game & Watch or the Tiger Electronics systems. Well, okay, to be fair, I don't think anything can kill Tiger Electronics. Those things I think are actually still being made today. However, many of you might be surprised to know that Nintendo was not the first to market with a cartridge-based handheld system. Well, I hear you asking, if it wasn't Nintendo, then who and what was it? Well, we're going to get to that, but first, let's go back to around the time of Auto Race, shall we? You see, thanks to Auto Race, the handheld gaming scene was starting to explode on the market, and Milton Bradley wanted to get in on this new form of electronic entertainment before they got left behind. To that end, they were looking for a device to fill that void. So it was that a small company called Smith Engineering, a firm that specialized in the development of electronic toys, and owned by a man named Jay Smith, the same man who would later go on to design the Vectrex game console, approached Milton Bradley. They were already aware of him from his work on Mattel's second handheld, Football. Given his experience and the company's interest, the company hired him. However, they didn't want to do exactly what everyone else had done before. You see, since the Magnavox Odyssey came out and was followed up by the Fairchild Channel F, many gaming systems were using cartridges. Yet, handhelds had remained relegated to single games. Part of this had to do with the displays available for portable devices. LED display technology commonly used in these devices was pretty limited and couldn't really handle a very complex playing field. Fortunately, for Milton Bradley, Jay was very experienced with the LCD screens and managed to expand the technology from 3 rows of active dots to 16. This may not sound like a lot, but in this day and age, that was huge. This allowed enough room for a primitive but engaging playing field on the games. This allowed them to start working on the idea of a handheld-based system that would take various cartridges and display them on the screen. They named it the microvision, and it was released in 1979 at the cost of $49.99. with 5 available games, including Blockbuster, Bowling, Connect 4, Shooting Star, and Pinball, each retailing for $19.95 apiece. However, I know what you're asking. If this was such a big deal, what happened? Well, let's take a look, shall we? You see, the system itself had a number of issues, the most common being the LCD display. The manufacturing process for the new display was really delicate, and if any impurities were introduced before it was sealed properly, it would result in the liquid crystal leaking and permanently darkening the screen. The second problem was the microprocessor on each cartridge. You see, the system didn't have its own CPU, so each cartridge had its own microprocessor that drove the main console, and those were really sensitive to static discharge. Just touching the pins could cause a high enough discharge into them to short out the microprocessor. The last issue had to do with the buttons. You see, each game had a different button configuration in use, so the simplest solution they could come up with was to approach it as having the buttons on the cartridge. So when you slipped in the cartridge, it would have all the labels for the buttons on it. In order to make this work, the plastic had to be really thin, and it was prone to wearing out and tearing easily. Even the Intel 8021 processor that was the main one used in the cartridges became difficult to purchase, making it hard and nearly impossible to manufacture the cartridges for use with the system, forcing them to switch to another processor, the TMS 1100. Despite all this, the first year was actually pretty successful. but interest dropped off pretty sharply after that, and instead of dropping more money and investing in a development with Smith Engineering, Milton Bradley decided to let the product die. In 1981, only 1 year after the official launch of the console, only 2 more games were released, and by the end of the console's lifespan, it only had around 12 games officially released for the system as a whole. Despite its short lifespan, it would actually go on to influence the industry, most likely being the influence on Nintendo's Game Boy, that would, unlike microvision, take off, sending ripples through the gaming industry, spawning off the likes of the Lynx and the Game Gear, just to name a few. Nintendo would continue to dominate the handheld industry off this concept all the way through the 3DS and into the Switch, all likely due to a small handheld by Milton Bradley that proved a good idea that came far too early to be executed properly. However, what do you guys think of this one? Did you already know about this? Did you ever own one? And if so, what did you think about it? Let me know in the comments. I'd like to also thank you for making it this far in the video. If you could, do me one more favor and please leave this video a like. And if you haven't, consider subscribing. It really helps me out. For now though, thank you once again for spending part of your day with me, and until next time, happy gaming!